But again, the next one on the list is from Havoc, and I'm going to link Havoc's channel to you guys in Twitch chat right away. We just started watching some of his videos more recently. Excuse me. But this one, this is right up my alley. You guys know how much I love mining in just any MMO I've ever played. And this is his idea of what mining 2.0 could be. So understand, as a lot of you guys don't understand, is that a lot of Havoc's videos are more on like the speculation idea of things. So like what could be, not what is going to be. And just talking about like, hey, what would be cool in this video game if it was actually a video game. So here's Mining 2.0, tying it all together, which is, again, the most important thing.
Mining in Star Citizen has been a staple for players looking to make their mark in the verse. But is it delivering the excitement and depth we've all been waiting for?
No. Not yet, at least.
With the game evolving and new features on the horizon, mining could become even more essential. Mining in Star Citizen debuted with Alpha 3.2, quickly growing into one of the game's most detailed gameplay loops. Whether it's blasting rocks in space...
It's weird. I think it set the standard for what Star Citizen gameplay was all about, which I think the word I would always use is tactile. Like you're actively doing something where a lot of video games, especially mining and MMOs, you click the rock and it auto mines for you and you wait. So it's something that you do more while watching Netflix or something like that. You're not watching Netflix while mining. You might be listening to something, but your eyes are on the screen and you're paying attention to what you're doing, right? So that, for me, kind of set the standard of what I thought Star Citizen gameplay content should be. And then we got Salvage, and it was kind of different than that, but in a good way, I think. And it's set the standard for Beam Citizen as well. So here we are, and I like it. I wouldn't say this requires skill necessarily. It's a pretty simple mechanic, but it's a mechanic you have to pay attention to, right? Which I like.
With the Prospector, operating the multi-crew Argo Mole, or going hands-on with the multi-tool for some FPS mining, players have a range of options to explore.
Which, like,
but as with any core feature in an evolving game, there are still issues and room for growth. In this video, we'll take a closer look at mining's current state, some of its major pain points, and what future developments could make it an even more vital profession in the Star Citizen universe. Before we dive into the video, I need to mention that some of the ideas discussed when talking about the future are speculative.
He's doing that because of your comments in my React videos, by the way. I guarantee that. Because you guys all call him names and stuff when it's very clearly just, this is the game I would like to play.
And some of these are not confirmed by CIG. These are just potential additions that could make mining a more engaging and crucial part of the Star Citizen experience. So take them with a grain of salt.
Mining beam pointing straight down, what the fuck? Ah, okay, so we have a bit of a new player here, or new to mining. That is the original Prospector video. That was the sale video for the Prospector. So the original sale for the Prospector was mining laser points down into the ground and extracts ore from the planet. And not only that, but it also removed inert material out the back. So the idea of having inert material in your cargo hold was never a thing either. So, yeah, that was actually what we thought it was going to be. Yeah, server meshing tonight? Apparently. We'll see.
Mining has
take
been
a look at that link Hudson Hawk put in.
Here,
before we put it in, we'll look at the link. So you could see the original like images and stuff, and this is the Q&A and what you were supposed to do. So this is when it was in concept art. I don't know if they show anything else. But yeah, there you go. Look. Even on the sale page now, it points down into the ground and is melting the ground. So you guys can read through the Q&A and stuff if you want, but yeah, this was the idea behind it. It was
for you.
You kind of like that idea? I do as well. I love the idea of the name of it being Prospector, radar coming on the horizon, scanning the surface of a planet, and digging into it. I love that idea.
Years, offering a structured process: prospecting, fracturing, extraction, and refinement. Each step adds layers of challenge and reward, whether you're cracking rocks in an asteroid or deep in a cave. There's a lot to appreciate about the ships that make mining possible. The Prospector is the perfect choice for solo miners, allowing players to work efficiently and independently.
Who knows? Hopefully.
For those who prefer to work with a crew, the Argo Mole brings a collaborative approach to mining, where each crew member...
Unfortunately, for those who prefer to run solo and just have more cargo hold and be able to make more mining, the Mole's also for you as well. So the Prospector just doesn't have a place in the game. I've argued this a lot, is like after playing Eve, Eve very much says, hey, if you're going to do this, this ship is actually better because it does, you know, ice mining a little bit better than rock mining, something like that, where you actually make a choice where some of the ships matter more.
Operates an independent mining turret. And on the horizon, larger ships like the RSI Orion and Arastra will offer even more options with onboard refineries, making these ships fully self-sufficient and capable of large-scale mining operations. Quantanium, currently the most unstable and valuable deposit, has added an exciting layer to mining. It's a high-stakes material that can explode if not refined or sold quickly.
Not only that, it's very exciting when you come across it as well, because it's such a rare thing to see that when you come across one, you're pretty hyped about it.
Offering a rewarding but risky experience for those who seek it. However,
SaltEMike, but people who have the Mole paid more money for it, so it should be better. Smile. No.
Quantanium is one of the few examples where risk and reward come into play at this level, which brings us to some of the issues in the current mining loop.
All right, the current issues.
While mining is one of the more complete professions in Star Citizen, there are still several pain points that need addressing for it to further evolve. One of the main criticism miners express is that after a while, the gameplay loop feels repetitive. You prospect, fracture, extract, refine, and sell. Rinse and repeat.
I'm curious why he thinks it's repetitive. Because every gameplay loop is repetitive in most MMOs.
While it's initially engaging, the lack of variety in the types of challenges you encounter, combined with the lack of connecting features, makes the process feel predictable over time and sometimes pointless.
That's the issue here. Is the loop ends instantly. There is no loop. The loop is too small of a circle. It's you mine, you refine, you sell, you make money, you do nothing with the money. Right? You do nothing with the money.
There's little in the way of random events or dynamic environmental conditions that could shake things up. Now the concept...
That's an interesting thought process. Random environmental... I'm assuming he'll give some examples of this. But is that what mining really needs? Like, well, I just believe that things like mining, things like salvage, maybe exploration, stuff like that, are kind of the gameplay loops that you are doing while you're watching Netflix, that you are the chill gameplay loops where they're not intense, and that these random occurrences that could happen, that it's like, oh crap, what am I going to do? I couldn't go to the bathroom and walk away for a few minutes. I don't like the idea of that necessarily. I don't like the idea of being tied to your seat the entire time while playing the game. I like the idea of, all right, I have a moment here. I'm going to click my mining laser on, and I'm going to pay really close attention to what I'm doing. And then when I'm doing other things, maybe I don't have to pay as much attention because I just paid so much attention to what I was doing while mining, right? I don't necessarily think the idea of a random occurrence is something that we need. I just think the idea of this repetitive gameplay loop is just to make the circle a bit wider, right? And you're mining for reasons. Like, this ore is really worth it right now because the things that it makes are really worth it. But I'm sure I'll get into that stuff. For 3 minutes into a 14-minute
mining
video.
is fantastic in theory. The Mole is a great example of this, offering a ship designed for group mining. However, the roles within the crew don't feel specialized enough.
I agree.
Right now, it often feels like every crew member is just pointing a mining laser at the rocks. But also,
it's still one of the old problems with the mining lasers is that when you pointed your mining laser at a rock, it wouldn't put any power into it if you were at 0 power, right? So then they made some changes to make that matter a little bit more. But I do still find that if you're in a mole with 4 people, like a pilot and three turret lasers, you're dealing with a situation where most of the time one person is kind of managing everything while the other people are just supporting there and just doing nothing essentially. And I just think you want to matter more, and I way prefer the idea of if rock clusters were a little bit more valuable as a cluster instead of each individual rock doing its thing, then the pilot would get close to a cluster of rocks, and each laser would be mining its own and be scooping up significantly more within that time period than a single prospector would, right? Or a similar amount to 3 prospectors, but those mining lasers are size 2, so they could do a little bit more, right? I like that idea better, but I think the distribution of rocks right now makes that less possible that often, right? I would love to come across a field of similar-sized rocks. Like if I find one that is 10, 11, 12, to like let's say 10K to 30K, a good mole rock, then my crew can mine that together as one, or if there were like 3 or 4 of them, then it would be better. What do you think about having mining drones? I don't know. I think if it's like Eve, like I've never used high-level drones. I've only ever used mining drone 1s in Eve, and they only carry like 1 SCU, let's say, which is very little in Eve. And so that feels okay. It like adds a little bit, but not a lot. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about them. I like the idea of tactile mining.
Not much room for dedicated roles like cargo management, energy control.
For what it's worth, I've been mining a lot lately, and they've been more mixed, some small, some big. Yeah, exactly. I've mined a lot over the years, and it's always been a mix of small and big, which the idea of that is to, if a prospector comes by, they can mine these rocks. And if a mole comes by, they can mine these rocks. And if you just want to scoop up something, little pickers or whatever, you can just pick them up. But the problem with that is there's never enough rocks there to keep you there. Like the idea that we were supposed to get the ability to mark rocks in our Mobi-Glass and sell them or share them or whatever, and we can't, is incredibly disappointing. But in the end, it doesn't matter if we could, because none of them would be worth marking anyway, because it would just be one rock. It's not like a whole cluster that you would mark it and constantly come back to for days. Like, isn't that the dream? And it's the dream for mining in my mind, which might never be possible. But how I always envision mining in this game is I found a big-ass cluster of Quantanium, something very valuable, right? I was scanning the surface of Daymar, and I found a Quantanium node that is, let's use SCU as a number, 500 SCU of Quantanium in that node. But there's also inert and the other trace materials that are there. So let's say it's 700 SCU total, maybe 800 SCU total of mineable ore, right? And that is something that I have to mark. I have to know where it is, and I have to come back to it because I can't fill anything with that. It's too big, right? Or I can call friends, and then all of a sudden the idea of what you could do and what you can't do starts to change quite a bit. And it's like the way they put a problem in front of me that I can solve. How do I solve it? There's multiple options to solve it. All of a sudden we have a sandbox, right? Like all of a sudden we have a game here, and it's much cooler. Or even
specialized mining tasks such as refining. The depth is lacking, which can make multi-crew mining less rewarding and far less cooperative than it could be. This brings us to FPS mining, which includes mining in caves or on foot with hand tools like the multi-tool, or even using ground vehicles like the Great Cat Rock.
It's pointless.
The problem here is that FPS mining often doesn't feel worth the time. The resources you find in caves or on the ground are typically not valuable enough to justify the effort it takes to locate and mine them, especially when compared to the yields you get from ship-based mining. Whether you're deep inside a cave system or out on a moon with your Greycat rock, the rewards rarely feel substantial enough to justify the time spent. This has led many players to avoid FPS mining entirely, as the profits don't align with the effort required.
Yeah.
There's also a limited number of resources to mine on planets overall, which reduces the variety and appeal of this aspect of the game. More types of minerals or harvestables could significantly improve this side of mining.
I don't agree.
Currently, the biggest risk...
It doesn't matter how many minerals or minables you put in the game. Look at prospector mining. There is no reason to grab anything other than the most valuable, right? The only stuff you're going to mine in an MMO is the most valuable. That's it. That's what you're going to do. So you have to create value outside of its monetary value. You have to create value for the low monetary stuff, the common materials, right? And you can't do that without crafting. And I remember years and years and years ago, I believe even Chris Roberts said it on Spectrum, there would not be traditional MMO crafting in this game. I was like, well, then how the fuck why do we have mining and salvage then? Right? There's no point. We're going to end up being it. And I got shit on. I even think I had a bet with Soros on the Redacted podcast about this. They're like, they said it, so that's what it's going to be. And I'm like, well, like I've played games like this. Like you can't have one without the other. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. And yeah, I mean, I think the only solution is crafting.
In mining comes from handling Quantanium with its volatile nature. However, aside from that, mining most other minerals is relatively low risk, and the rewards often don't reflect the effort or dangers. The game needs more valuable minerals that provide different levels of risk and reward, encouraging miners to take on more challenging operations. Another issue miners face is the lack of dynamism in the economy.
Yeah.
The prices for minerals don't fluctuate enough based on supply and demand.
But they don't need to fluctuate that much. That's the thing. They don't need to fluctuate if you actually used the material yourself.
Which makes
we don't need them to fluctuate game-wise. We need them to fluctuate player economy-wise. The player economy should determine the value of the minerals. And the player economy should be determined by what we use them to craft with, right?
Mining feel disconnected from the larger universe. Players can flood the market with certain minerals without it impacting their value, which eliminates the need for strategy when selling resources.
We have a market? No, we need one. So like if we're doing a speculation video here, my speculation is we have to have a marketplace that we share things actually before we ever have a crafting system. We need to be able to craft things for each other, not just to sell. Because if we go down the path of crafting, if we are crafting just to sell again, we are making the same mistakes we have always made. We need to be crafting for each other. I need to be crafting something that I don't want to use myself, that somebody else wants to use. I don't like engaging in PvP gameplay in this game. I think it's boring. I think it's tired. I think it's toxic. And I think it's just makes no sense. So I don't participate in any of that stuff. I'm not knocking anybody who does play it by the way. It's just not my interest. But what interests me is feeding whatever there is. If there was a war in this game, I want to be one of the people who feeds it. One side of it. Who cares what side it is, right? That's what I want. That's what I want personally. And if I can't get that, I'll probably end up moving on from the game at some point. It just hasn't happened yet, and I'm hoping it does. So I just playing Eve has just changed my whole outlook on what a player economy is and what could be in this game so simply and so easily. Hey, Grumpy, I'm good. I know I was away from the computer when you came.
Reacts to how much is mined would add a layer of depth and force miners to think strategically about when and where to sell their goods. Now, before we get into what the future may hold, If you're finding this deep dive into Star Citizen's upcoming features valuable, consider subscribing. It's a small action that helps the channel grow and keeps you up to date with all the latest news and gameplay mechanics coming to the verse. Plus, it's the best way to make sure you don't miss any of the exciting updates that are sure to come as the game continues to evolve. But let's get back to mining.
All right, here we go. Here's the speculation stuff that I just did for the last 10 minutes.
Star Citizen's mining loop could evolve in exciting ways, especially with the integration of other gameplay loops like crafting and base building.
Yep.
Now, a little while ago, I covered both base building and crafting that you can find in the description below.
I don't think I watched this one yet. Maybe we'll watch it.
Mining will play a pivotal role in providing the resources necessary to fuel these other professions.
Yeah.
And finally make it even more worthwhile.
It's step one of crafting.
In the future, mining will likely become a critical profession for crafting high-tier gear, armor, weapons, and even ships. Players will need to gather and refine resources for personal use or to help their organization with base building projects.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Establishing bases will require vast quantities of resources, which will force large-scale mining operations to play a central role. This will also give organization...
I still don't know necessarily why we have a base, and I am very concerned with what I saw for their CitizenCon preview, which was literally like a tiny little homestead where I had a couple pieces of armor there. None of that sounds exciting, like drawing me in or, this is what I need in my life kind of in this game kind of thing. Like, okay, I do need a place to put my armor. That would be cool. But in general... Like, why do I have a base outside of looking at sunsets from my window, right? That's what I saw from their sneak preview. So I'm very keen on what they're going to say and show at CitizenCon if there is a why behind making them. Because if I'm just crafting a base to craft a base, which is very Star Citizen, then I'm not really that interested, right?
Mining operations more importance.
Why make a base in most games? Well, in most games, your base would be your base for crafting, right? Will Star Citizen sell a ship for crafting? Or will they make an in-game only, no shot, module for your base for crafting? No. They'll either sell you the module so you can pay to win and have it, or they'll sell you the ship so you can pay to win and have it, right? We know they're going to sell it. And... that would be kind of the big. I shouldn't say the beginning of the downfall, because I think it started way before the Argo Atlas, right? But I think that it would be very bad if that's what they did. Some of this stuff needs to be in game, right? So we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
As players will need to pool resources to.
Like in EVE, only big corps have their own stations and they have factories, cloning bays, stuff in it. Yeah, that's true. But this isn't EVE, and we don't have the amount of space that EVE does, and I don't know if they're going down that direction. So what sort of scale are orgs in this game going to have? What are they going to do? Why are they going to do it? We don't know any of that, right? We can want it to be like EVE, and I certainly do, but I don't think this community wants this game to be exactly like EVE. So you have to respect that as well, right? As much as I want the game to take from EVE, I think a lot of players in the community don't want the toxicity of EVE. And if you have EVE, you have the toxicity of EVE. So what are you gonna do? How do you find that middle ground where you got some of the cool stuff from EVE without some of the pitfalls of it, right? So there's both of those things. I do really like some systems in EVE, but you have to make sure you balance it already,
to achieve long-term goals like constructing outposts or crafting rare items. Players will no longer be mining just to sell minerals for profit, but to directly influence their crafting and base building endeavors. In addition to needing more types of minerals, we could see an expansion on the quality of resources mined. Currently, all minerals of the same type are treated equally, but this could change as CIG develops more complex systems.
Yeah.
Minerals extracted from different
precious quantanium, right?
Areas could vary in quality, meaning that not all deposits would yield the same amount or purity of material.
I never said Star Citizen has no toxicity. It's just a different type. It's if you're mad at Star Citizen, then you're the worst thing in the world and everybody toxically goes nuts and tries to cancel you. If you're happy with Star Citizen, another part of the toxic community is going to make fun of you, right? It's and then you have the, if you PvP me at all in an open world PvP game, you're griefing, right? You have like these problems as well. There's plenty of problems with this community. They are one of the most ridiculous communities I've ever seen in my entire life.
The mining process itself could impact the quality of the material. For instance, how well you manage the fracturing process or how precisely you extract the fragments could determine the quality of the final product.
Yeah, like if you come across like a really high level Quantanium node, let's call it precious or something, if you mine it poorly, it will go down in quality to the next lowest quality or something. That would be neat.
This would reward players who pay attention to their mining skills and encourage mastery over the process. The refining process could also introduce more complexity.
Star Citizen is good.
In the
Smile.
future,
I've now
players may
everyone.
have the opportunity to further refine their minerals on board ships or at refineries to improve the final quality. Poorly refined materials could have lower value or less usefulness in crafting, while high-quality materials would yield more valuable and effective products. One of the most promising areas...
I think the best way to go about it is just a little bit simpler. The higher the quality product, just the more you get out of it. So if you go to the refinery process, the higher the quality, the less you'll lose. I just think just keep it simple. That's my personal preference. I like the idea of going as deep as possible, but you do have the option to have it impact crafting as well. But I think you can go just really simply and make it where you just lose less when you go to the refinery. But either way is fine for me. I wouldn't be upset with either one. But I do think keeping something simple is beneficial and something that they should consider in every aspect. Just not too simple, but not too complicated all the time, right?
Of expansion for mining is the multi-crew experience. As ships like the Orion and the Arastra come online, they will likely introduce more specialized roles for crew members, giving them defined tasks to enhance the mining operation. For example, a player dedicated to managing the ship's refinery, optimizing the refinement process to produce higher quality materials. This role could involve adjusting temperature and pressure settings, selecting the right refining methods, and ensuring the process is running smoothly.
I mean, that's a weird pause. Hold on. That's also a weird pause. I can't find a good pause. I'm sorry. The idea of what was it? The Galaxy or something like that. Whatever the refinery ship was, the Expanse. I can't remember the name of it, but whatever the refinery ship was, the refining ship, the little one, that refinery process sounded very different than what we have now. With, like, it was more hands-on and tactile and all that stuff, but we don't know what the benefits of it were going to be. But we knew where there were reagents and there was all sorts of stuff going on there. And I heard some funny stories about that, and that, of course, never happened.
For
and I was lied to.
And identifying high-value mineral deposits. This player would use advanced scanning equipment to ensure that the mining crew is targeting the richest deposits, making prospecting more engaging and giving it more depth. The cargo operator will be in charge of managing the ship's storage, ensuring that extracted minerals are properly stored and ready for transport. This role could...
I'm sorry, I want to be able to move stuff between the bags in both ships. I just want to be able to move material between bags, so if I wanted to empty a bag, then I could. I really want to be able to do that.
Involve planning storage strategies, jettisoning excess or unwanted material, and coordinating with the pilot to ensure efficient operations. Now, all of these roles were clearly defined in their design notes on mining in 2015.
And they somewhat stuck to these 2015 things. What if you had control of which bag was filled? Well, the problem with that is as you're grabbing... Can I control? This is from Luke, who works on the game. If I could control what bag was filled with what, then I would say yes. Like, I like the idea of inert material or things you might not want existing, and you have to manage your cargo and all that stuff. That's part of the game. I think that's good. But if I could choose one bag to be inert material and one bag to be some low-value material like titanium, and then gold and quantanium and stuff can go in the other bags, then I can physically drop that bag off and replace it with another if I wanted, and then continue going, right? I want the mining experience to be focused on the mining experience, where you're mining. You are mining all the time. So I've talked about this for years and years and years, where I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we have no big field of ore that we would come back to often over and over again, because most of the time you spend mining is not mining. Most of the time you spend scanning, looking for the rock you're going to mine next, right? And I just want that to go away. I want that to go away a little bit more, where the process of finding that is super important, but then you mine for a while, and then you move on to the next one, right? And that's my preference there. And if that would aid in that process of, all right, well, the inert material goes in this bag, and I drop that off, and I can just leave it there, or whatever. I can do whatever I want with it. Maybe inert material is used in some sort of process at some point, filling a hole or something, like people actually buy it, right? But the idea of, well, if I can keep the stuff I'm looking for and remove the stuff I want in multiple ways, then I can keep mining. That's what I want. I want to keep mining. And I actually do believe inert material is purchased if you sell it at the mining terminal. They buy it for very little, but it's there.
It's anyone's guess if they still plan to implement these roles. But by introducing these roles, multi-crew ships would become more dynamic and rewarding, allowing each member of the crew to specialize and contribute in meaningful ways.
Yeah. I would love somebody to be on some sort of panel managing the cargo of a ship. We're currently working on a tech preview build for playtest early this afternoon with many updates to RMQ and meshing.
With the upcoming engineering gameplay being added in 4.0, this could add even more room for multi-crew gameplay. No longer would everyone simply be operating mining lasers. Each player would have a distinct and valuable task. To make mining more engaging, elemental challenges could add new layers of risk and excitement. Mining in hazardous areas like asteroid belts could introduce fast-moving debris that must be avoided, or seismic activity on planets could make surface mining more dangerous. Players might have to deal with environmental hazards, ship malfunctions, or even pirates looking to steal their haul. These dynamic elements would make each mining operation feel unique and force miners to adapt their strategies based on the conditions they face.
I want that to be us. I want the risk to be other players. Why can't the risk ever be other players? Like, this is where I just lose my mind with this game and this community. We're always asking CIG to do the work for us. Why not both? Because one is way simpler than the other, right? One is way simpler than the other. If the risk was other players, the other players do all the work, right? The other players do all the work, and CIG has to do less. So that's what I want to see more of, is ways to avoid other players, but ways for other players to find you, and this cat and mouse experience.
Another exciting possibility for the future of mining is the introduction of a dynamic economy and player markets. Now, we've talked about these a lot in previous videos, and it's obviously a theme that we need an economy and player markets. But as the StarSim economy comes online, players may no longer be limited to selling their mined and refined resources to the predetermined locations at fixed prices that we're used to right now. Instead, we could see a more flexible system where supply and demand play a significant role in determining the value of resources. Players could sell their resources directly to NPC traders or on the player-driven market once it's added, where other players, especially those focused on crafting and base building, might be in high demand for specific materials. This would encourage more strategic mining decisions, where players need to think about what resources are most in demand, whether they're selling to NPCs or directly to other players. With a dynamic economy, rarer minerals or...
Yeah, I always get caught up on the, like, what's the most valuable thing right now? I need to let that go a little bit, because if the game ever mattered, like if there was the right amount of gold sinks, if you were buying and selling ships, like if the game was out, his POV is absolutely correct. Like, a miner will go out there and sometimes mine just to sell it. I want to make that very clear. Like, I'm hyper fixated and hyper focused on doing things like crafting, right? And how important crafting will be. It's a wrinkle in the process, but it isn't the whole process. Lots of mining happens. Like, again, the game I compare to is Eve in this case, because it's what I do a lot of. And not this whole week, because I've been playing Throne of Liberty, but the idea of sometimes I mine because I want that material, and sometimes I mine because I want the money. And I want the money because I want to go do other things like salvage or craft or buy something, right? Because everything in the game has some sort of a value that I need to take advantage of. And yeah, I need to let the idea of, well, the most valuable ore is not the most important thing. I mean, it can be. But in the grand scheme, I think the most important thing is for every material to have value.
Those required for high-end crafting projects would fetch higher prices, while oversupply of common materials could drive prices down. For instance, a shortage of resources like agricium or gold might cause a spike in market prices, encouraging miners to seek out those minerals, while an overabundance of titanium could cause its price to plummet, forcing miners to rethink their operations and seek more profitable ventures. Refined goods could also fetch significantly higher prices, giving players an incentive to improve their refining capabilities and deliver premium quality materials to the market.
I mean, another thing pulling from Eve, and I'm sorry, again, if you're going to be annoyed by this, but these examples aren't the, like, Eve is toxic and Eve is a spreadsheet simulator and all those things. In Eve, you have skills. So I don't know how we simulate this in Star Citizen. You may not be able to, but in Eve, you will get a lot less back if you refine stuff yourself if you don't have the best refinery skills. So what you'll do is you'll literally sell your raw ore to somebody who is going to refine that ore, and typically the buyback percentage would be 90% of the value of it refined. So you're just losing 10% if you add the best skills possible. So you don't even need to get the skills. You just sacrifice 10%. They buy the ore, they refine it, they go to sell it, or they use it for whatever purpose they do. And it's a really nice process where miners can offload much quicker, not have to go through the refinery process at all, not have to deal with any BS, and they make pretty good money that way. And again, this is a player-made solution, not a game solution. So we have the refineries that we currently have. What if those refineries were the least efficient way to do things, and player refineries were the most efficient way to do things? But player refineries are hard to keep, hard to upkeep, and all these other things and reasons and blah, 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 right? So again, I've always preferred skills and my MMORPGs, but we know we're not going to have those here. But are there ways to simulate that? I think there could be, and I would love to see a place where people who like to mine make friends with people who have refinery bases, and they offload and they sell, and it all works out and everybody's happy, right? Big orgs dealing with that kind of stuff and that thing. But yeah, I don't know, but I just think there's so much opportunity here. There's so much opportunity here that it's what keeps me around. It really is what keeps me around.
This could foster player-to-player trade, with crafters and base builders purchasing high-quality refined resources.
Dreaming about mining to date, you can't exchange bags. I wouldn't call it to date you can't exchange bags. It's they made an update and broke changing bags. I've done mining ops with my org where we were exchanging bags from 15 different miners out there to 1 or 2 different ships and selling. Like the org handled all of the refineries
from dedicated miners. Moreover, with player organizations establishing their own bases and supply chains, miners could become essential parts of larger economic machines, helping fuel the ongoing operations of orgs that need raw materials to keep expanding and producing high-tier equipment, vehicles, and facilities. Imagine being contracted by a player-run organization to supply critical materials for the construction of a base on a distant moon or a fleet of new ships.
Yep.
That is, of course, one...
Or just an org out there saying, hey, I'm buying this, like, hell, you don't even need to be like, thoughts on just a simple marketplace where we're not interacting with each other. And I know that might not be what people want, but the simplicity of that, I don't know how you guys feel, and I'd be very curious about what you guys think about this, because a lot of people love the camaraderie of Star Citizen or the interactions of Star Citizen, and it's very special in that way. But the idea of making something in a game, and again, I continuously go back to Eve because Eve is so good at this, guys. I craft like some really low-end material, like really low-end, they're called rigs in Eve. I go out, I salvage ships, and all rigs are made from salvage in the game, right? Or all tier 1 rigs. Tier 2, it gets a little crazier. So I just make the simplest stuff. Tier 1 rigs, and I put them up on the market every weekend. And then you watch a fleet go up, you watch a fleet spool up, and then all of a sudden, it's the most satisfying sound in the world. It's like a bing, and you watch your money go up. And you know that you were a part of something bigger. And it's a simple thing that when your stuff's sold, somebody needed it. Right? And it's this wild feeling of I'm a part of this huge universe, and I made something that somebody else needed. So it's the idea of losing ships, losing components, constantly needing them replaced, all that stuff. That's what Eve does really, really well. Eve does a lot of things really, really poorly, okay? And I don't think, or how about Eve does a lot of things that wouldn't fit in Star Citizen. But when you do something in the game and somebody else interacts with it, it's a really satisfying feeling. So, yeah.
Once they finally add a worthy player reputation system and player contract manager. In short, the introduction of a player-driven economy could make mining one of the most lucrative professions in Star Citizen, with players able to specialize in certain types of resources, refine them for maximum profit, and trade with other players on an open market.
Yes.
Mining in Star Citizen has come a long way since its introduction, but there's still so much potential for growth. With crafting, base building, a dynamic economy, and player-driven markets on the horizon, the profession is set to become even more essential. The possibilities for new roles, more dynamic environmental challenges, and strategic resource trading could turn mining into one of the game's most rewarding and engaging experiences. We could see new mineral types, resource quality mechanics, and expanded multi-crew roles that turn mining into an even more complex and rewarding experience. As the universe continues to evolve, so will the opportunities for miners to make their fortune. Whether you're a solo miner looking for the next big haul, or part of a larger organization, the future of mining in Star Citizen is filled with possibilities. But until these features come to life, we're left to wonder just how far CIG will push this profession. What do you think? Are there aspects of mining that you'd like to see improved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
I think most of what mining needs are things outside of mining. I think what mining needs is so many things that aren't mining. And that's it. And then you can go through these, let's add some depth to it. Right? Same, I think salvage suffers a little bit differently, Where salvage, really, the whole construction material thing is just absolute dog shit. I sort of like the idea of RMC, but I think RMC should maybe be a refinable material that you can extract certain materials from that RMC, and whatever RMC you get off of an 890 jump might have different material in it than the ones that you get off of an Aegis ship. But outside that, mining needs an economy. Mining needs players fighting each other. Mining needs, when players fight each other, they lose stuff. Mining needs crafting. Mining needs a marketplace. Mining needs Star Citizen. You know?
If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. Members get access to exclusive channels in my Discord, early access to videos, and even member-exclusive content every month. Your support helps me create in-depth videos like this one, diving into the complexities of Star Citizen's ever-evolving gameplay. So if you want to take that next step, you can support us here on YouTube or on Patreon. And if you want more information on how engineering could make for thrilling multi-crew gameplay, you'll want to check out the next video. Fly safe, pilots, and we'll see you in the verse. Have it go.
That was a really good video. I'm obsessed with mining, in case you can't tell. I'm obsessed with the idea around this stuff. Obsessed with it. So it's just what I want to do. It's what I just want to turn on the computer every day and go out and do something meaningful, but I don't care to be the biggest or the best or anything. I just want to do something meaningful, right? So, yeah, like I don't need to be the main character, but I just want to feel like I'm a part of a bigger thing. And that's what mining could be. That's what salvage could be. And then whatever step after that. And the step should not just be take the cargo and sell it. It could be, but I need more options. And that's all I would do differently. I don't need to go crazy in depth. I think a lot of Star Citizen fans want depth to what you're doing. I want depth to why you're doing it. And I want multiple choices for what I do after I mine. I want multiple choices for what I do after I salvage and all those things. I think that would be really, really fun. And then allow us, the players, to make those choices and allow us, those players, to tell the story of the game, which was always the original pitch, right? Was this universe sim, this sandbox that you just go and do things. And then it's always been missions, and it's always been manufactured content that isn't real by the game company. And while, things like Siege of Orison or Ninetales Lockdown or whatever it's called now, Blockade Runner, could be fun, it never quite hits the way that doing piracy runs with Space Cutlet did. In case you guys don't know what I'm referencing, when the original cargo update came out, there was just one SCU boxes, but they were physicalized. So when they would do piracy hits on C2s, because everybody used the C2 because the game's pay to win, they would run 600 SCU of gold from SMO 18, SMO 10, things like that. 600 SCU of these things. And the pirates started getting frustrated with most of the time they were spending, very similar to my arguments about mining, most of their time they were spending moving cargo and not actually pirating. So they hired us to move the cargo for them. So we were the industrialists. We dealt with the cargo and the sale, and they dealt with the piracy, and we split the profits. It's the most fun I ever had playing SC. It was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month of every day getting a ping from the piracy group, every day going through and just watching that happen was... It was the only organic gameplay I had in a while. We did the gun running thing, but the game fought that so much. The game didn't fight that. Didn't fight the idea of moving cargo as much. And it's got even better with the freight elevator or the personal hangars, but it got better in the way that the pirate can now steal the ship, bring it to their own hangar. but they still got to move the cargo. But with bigger cargo boxes and things like that, the time isn't that much, so they don't need us anymore. And that's fine. But I look forward to a day where they do, right? And do they need us to mine stuff? Do they need us to craft stuff? Do they need us to do things that they don't want to do? And that's what MMOs are all about to me. And I think mining is at the core of that. So great video from Havoc, and I'm very excited for whatever the future that mining may hold. So let me go ahead and copy the video URL to you guys. Again, we've only been watching Havoc a little bit now, so make sure you go over there and subscribe. He's very open to the reacts and everything and really enjoys when we do them, and I've really enjoyed his videos so far. I do like speculating about the game and what it could be. I really do. It's one of my favorite things to do if you haven't noticed, and his videos really get those juices flowing on that, so I appreciate them.